Ever wonder why your music doesn't quite sound the way you hoped? As a composer who's worked with over 50 professional ensembles from all around the world, I've learned firsthand how poor translation from the page makes compositions fall short on the stage. So today I'll walk you through real parts sent in by my subscribers and show you 3 of the most common part preparation mistakes and how to fix them so your music actually sounds the way you intended. Now before we get into our submissions, I want to show you the 3-step process that I use every time I engrave parts. Now the first thing that I would do before I do any engraving is make sure that I can find a modern professional part to be comparing my work to. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use a part for my piece I Sheen, which was premiered recently with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Now the reason that we do this is it's always easier to have a concrete example of what a professional part looks like for reference. Now step 2 is what I call the falcon view, and now the falcon view is what it sounds like. We want to zoom out and take a look at the part from a bird's eye perspective. Make sure that we have a good spacing in terms of the page margins. Make sure that there's no clutter on the page. There's no notes going on top of each other. There's no slurs clashing with each other, dynamics clashing with each other, those type of things. We want to make sure that there's not too many bars per system or too few bars per system. And the way that you can really see this is when you zoom out and take a look at the part as a whole. This is what I call the falcon view. And last but not least, my last step is to refine the score. And by refining the score, what we're doing is after we've done the falcon view, we'll zoom in on each bar by bar and start making the necessary edits according to the biggest issues that we saw in the first place. And by the way, if you're wondering what those specific issues are, I will talk about them in the video, but they're also outlined in the engraving checklist that I've linked down below in the description. And now that we got our 3-step framework set, let's move on to the first mistake that I see in parts. And that usually is that the staff and the font sizes are just too small. So now let's take a look at one of my subscribers' parts. This is a part for cello, and we want to make sure that we follow the 3-step process. So I'm going to take a quick look at this and then take a look at my part right here and see if I can spot any differences. And right off the bat, I see that there are issues with the fonts and the staff sizes. So when you take a look at my part, for example, the staff sizes look a little bit bigger. The font sizes look a little bit bigger as well. And we want to double check that with the cello part as well. So I'm looking at it and I'm just saying, wow, there's just so many staves on this page. And the reason there are so many staves is because the staff size is just so small. If I try to read this from about, a couple of feet or so, it's really hard for me to read the notes on the page, and it's really hard for me to read the text on the page as well. So we want to make sure that those staff sizes and those font sizes are considerably bigger. And really the way to tell how much bigger they should be, right, is to take a look at a model part and see okay, what would a professional engraved part actually look like and what sizes are they using, and kind of look at it part by part to make sure that your part is looking the same way. So that would be the very first thing that I would see when I'm doing this kind of analysis of the 2 parts right here. The second thing that we do is the falcon view. So again, the step 1 and step 2, if you have both parts right next to each other, you're kind of doing step 1 and step 2 at the same time because you're looking at the falcon view situation with these 2 parts. We already basically did the falcon view here, but now we want to do step 3, which is to refine what we're looking at. So after we've made the staff sizes a bit bigger and the font sizes a bit bigger, I want to zoom in and see what else is going on in this particular part. So if I just zoom in and take a look at the first few measures ago, it doesn't really look too bad actually. The dynamics are in the right places. We have key signature, bass clef, everything looks how it should be. One thing that I am noticing is that there are just too many bars per system. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's call this 1 bar, 12, 13. So 13 bars per system is quite a lot. It's quite a lot of music to cram on one system. Typically, you don't want to go past 5 to 8 bars per system. If you took a look at what I did here, the most that I do is right here in the second system, but that's because there's a bunch of rest. If I have a line with a bunch of music, let's say this system here at 52, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars, that's nowhere near the number that this particular person had, which was about 13 bars per system. So we want to fix that as well. As we keep going down here, it doesn't look too bad, but I do notice a discrepancy between the bar number size that you see here and the font sizes of the tempo text and of the technique text. So we want to make sure that those are pretty much similar sizes. Right now, the bar number sizes are way bigger than the tempo and way bigger rather than the technique. So we want to change that. So if I go back to my part, right, we can see that the bar numbers are actually a little bit smaller, as you can see, than the tempo text. But they're basically almost a similar size, just the bar numbers are just slightly smaller. If you look at the rehearsal text here, you see the letter D. It's actually about the same size as the tempo text. So long story short, you want to make the fonts consistent throughout a piece of music so that it looks really readable on the page. On the other side of the spectrum is a part that has staff sizes that are a little bit too big, that are not allowing there to be enough bars per system. So if we look at this horn part right here sent in by another subscriber, you'll notice that each system has about 2 measures. There's 2 measures in the first system, 2 measures in the second system, 2 measures in the third system. And I believe it just kind of goes like that for the entire piece. Every single system seems to have 2 measures. And if we again go back to the model part right here, there is not a single system here that only has 2 measures. And there are even some systems that have quite complex rhythms per bar. For example, these quintuplets or these seventuplets, and I still managed to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars here. For example, here on this last system on page 4, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars, for example. So 5 to 8 bars, I'd say, is usually where we want to reach for. As you can see here, there's just 2 bars per system. So what this does is it really makes it hard to read, because what happens is your eyes are just like so spread apart on the system that it makes it hard for a player to read ahead when there's these few bars per system. So what we want to do is here I would just put the staff size tiny bit smaller, not much smaller than this, and then add a third, fourth, and really I think you can add definitely a 5th bar per system to really make sure that this is a part that reads a little bit better on the eye, because that way they can sight read the part much better rather, because they can see more information in a smaller space. We just don't want to have it like at that other example where there's just too many bars per system and too small. That's an extreme on the other end we want to avoid. So we want to get that sweet spot in the middle that you'll see in the model part here, where it's not too few bars, not too many bars. It's just like Goldilocks. It's just right in the center there, or whatever, however that story goes. Now, the second common thing that I see that's really going to tick off players, and it's definitely happened to me on more than one occasion, more than a handful of occasions, is unplayable page turns. So let me show you what I mean by this. So let's take a look at a double bass part that one of my subscribers submitted. And what we want to do, first of all, is take a look at how page turns are done in a professional part. So if we take a look at my piece here, you'll see that we do have a page turn right here at the end of page 3, and I leave plenty of rest there for that page turn to happen. And when we take a look at the next page here, we have 2 full pages of music, and then since we have a double or final bar line right over here, there's no more music on the next page, so there's no page turn needed. So there's only 1 page turn in my piece. But notice how the page turn is happening on a part that has ample amount of rest. The player can easily turn the page, no problem at all. Now, notice that I purposefully made sure that when a musician opens up the part, they see the first 2 pages up on the screen like this, or up on their stand rather. That way they can turn the page after the second full page of music. Oftentimes though, you'll have a part that looks like this. This is the other thing that could happen, where the part starts with 1 page on the right hand side, which is what this composer did right here. So you can see this is page 1 on the right hand side, and I know this is the first page of music, by the way, and I know that it should be seen like this, by the way, with these 2 pages on in front of me, because odd numbered pages are always on the right hand side. So this composer has the number 1 written on this page. That means that that page has to be on the right hand side of the stand. If you take a look at my part here, you'll see the number 3 is on the right side. That means that's on the right hand side of the page. It's always like that. You want to make sure that the odd numbers are on the right and the even numbers are on the left. It will make it much easier for you to distribute the page turns in your part. So keep that in mind as we go through here, because if I made this page the first page of the part, I would have had a problem, because right over here you'll notice at the bottom of the page there's just 2 quarter rests there. There was no way that I could have made a really good page turn. So I had to open up the 2 pages here just like this so I can get that page turn on an odd numbered page right over here at the end of page 3. So this is why it's so important for us to have a model part to see what other composers did. So going back to this double bass part, you'll notice that there's a bunch of music going on here, and then there's this music that's happening on the end, and there's just no time to turn the page. Then we get to the next 2 pages here. We have page 2 and page 3. All this music is going on, all this music is going on, and then we have the final bar line right here. So of course there's no more page turns. That's the end of the piece. Now the problem with this is we could have easily had a page turn if the composer just thought a little bit ahead, and I can just see that right over here. So what I want to look for to fix this is, are there any moments in the part where there's ample amount of rest? And if I look at the first page, there's definitely not any moment here to take a page turn. But then if I look at the second and third pages, I can see clear as day at measures 43 and 44, there's definitely a space to take a page turn. And you might be thinking, well, how are we supposed to do that? There's already all that music before. What you can do, which is what I've done many times, is you can actually have this page, right, be the odd numbered page. So this page right here would go on the left-hand side, and then this page right here would go on the right-hand side. So it would be exactly like what I did with my piece over here. You have a left-hand side page and a right-hand side page. The right-hand side page has the rests. So if we go back to the double bass piece, this would be on the left-hand side, so that we'll see that page on the left, and then this page will be on the right-hand side. And here's the kicker. The music will stop right here at the 2 bars of rest. So the page turn will be over here, which means that the next page will start with this music here. So I hope that you followed that, because it sounds complicated, but when the player gets the music, they'll be very thankful that you did this, because then they can turn the page right here. So there will be a bunch of gap here, let's say, after these 2 bars of rest, but then they'll be able to turn the page, and then they'll be introduced to this music on the next 2 pages, and then you can possibly have another page turn right here with these 2 bars of rest right here, and then the next page, the next open page, would be this music here at bar 99. So the idea is that don't be afraid to have a bunch of blank space on a page. If that means you can have a really nice page turn, it will make your instrumentalist really happy, and it will make sure that your music actually comes off better on the stage. And as a quick reminder, if you'd like to grab my engraving checklist, you can download it for free in the description below. Now, the third mistake that I see that's going to derail any rehearsal that you have is a lack of cues in your parts. Now, if you've never heard what cues are before, let me show you what they are. So again, we're going to go back into step 1 of our framework, which is to go into a model part, which is my iSheen example right here. So let me just zoom in and show you exactly what I mean by a cue. So a cue is what these 2 bars are. So they're basically these little notes that indicate what other players in the orchestra are doing before that musician enters on their music. And this is typically something that you would put into the parts, especially when there's an elongated period of rest. So when I look at this pitch right here that's happening, this B that's being played out here in the flute part, the reason that I put these cues here is probably because that there was an elongated area of rest. So let me just double check and make sure that's what happened. So we're looking at rehearsal M over here. There's a couple bars of oboe cues. If I look at the section before, look at this. There's all these rests that are happening. And even within the rest, by the way, which you don't necessarily have to do, but I decided to do them here just to make things clear, is that even within the rest, I put cueing so that the flute player can keep track of where they are during all these rests. So what I would typically like to do is just make sure that 1 or 2 measures before the person plays has cues. Sometimes you can even put 3, 4, even 5 measures. It just depends on what the phrase is. And what you want to do is make sure that those notes are small, like what I have here, and then put in the second voice a whole rest so that they know that they're not supposed to play this lick. And then you would put in the actual player that's going to be playing that specific cue. And it's pretty simple. You want to make sure that you do that in every big area where the player doesn't play. That way it's really easy for them to get back on track with their entrances. And the other side thing that happens students too is that they're really confident when they come in. They know, okay, I heard that oboe play that little melody. Okay, I'm confident to play this B. So there's an extra layer of confidence happening when they see a cue in their part. And let me show you one of my subscribers who submitted this violin part. And as you can see, the part doesn't look too bad compared to some of the other things that we talked about so far. But my Falcon view, right, I can see right off the bat that we have 17 bars of rest in the very beginning of the score. And then we have this F sharp going into G in that first system. And if I was a violinist, I probably would be like not 100% sure where my entrance comes in. So that's where cueing comes into effect. So you want to make sure when you have an elongated area of rest like this, 17 bars plus this extra bar here at bar 18, we put some cues in from a nearby instrument or something that the violinist can obviously hear. That way they know, okay, I'm very confident where that F sharp starts so that I can be, extremely confident in my entrance here, because we want to make sure that we want to get as many of these pitches and rhythms happening on the first take in any rehearsal you have, especially when it's with an orchestra like we see in this particular example. Now that you can impress musicians with your flawless parts, how do you actually get opportunities to write for them in the first place? In this next video, I'll show you exactly how one of my students went from 0 to more commissions than he can handle in just under 1 year.